Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic, debate, and entertainment. And we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we got a lot of interesting show for you guys on our Friday special. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, I know before we even begin this video, I'm sure some of you, before you clicked on the video, like, wait a minute, am I reading the length of this video? Yes, you're reading the length of this video. We want to welcome you guys to our Friday show, Friday special show. Obviously, it all depends on when you guys are watching this show. This is just something we wanted to try a few, today and maybe one other, a few times in the future and see how it goes. If people like it, then it's something that we can incorporate into our strategy moving forward. If not, then it's a one-off special. So in today's show, we have a lot of things that we want to discuss. First of all, I'm going to be talking about the potential of Shannon Sharpe to sign to FanDuel. That's something I'm going to touch on. I think it's quite interesting. Got a lot of interesting insight from Marcellus Wiley that I want to touch on. Of course, we're going to be recapping some of the things that we had to say about Nick Wright getting exposed. We exposed him on this channel. Now, I want to say that we're not the only people that exposed him, but we did a pretty extensive show yesterday. If you guys missed that, for the people that missed that, we're going to be recapping that. And then also we're going to talk about Zion Williamson today. And we have a bonus segment for you guys today that we're going to get into, but the only way you're going to find out about it is if you wait till the end of the show. So let me get into the show here today. Let's start off with the first topic. First of all, as you guys know, Shannon Sharpe is no longer with Undisputed. We all know this, right? We saw the farewell show. We did a show where a lot of people thought we clickbaited them. Funny enough, we didn't even think we just thought, a couple of, the people that work here at Dreamers Pro, we thought it was a pretty interesting thing that the guy walked off, the set without shaking Skip's hand and saying goodbye. We didn't see him anywhere else, hugging it up with anyone else. We didn't see Skip at the send-off party where they were giving Shannon Sharpe donuts, and some people thought we were clickbaiting. But hey, people have a right to their opinion. We didn't think that that was the case. And given the fact that Shannon was out there saying that, liking tweets that said Skip was jealous of him, we didn't think that. But hey, everyone has a right to their opinion. So we know that Shannon Sharpe has left Undisputed. And ever since he left the show, we've been speculating two things, really. The first thing is, who's going to be his replacement? And we've yet to see who that person is. My hunch is that they're probably going to bring this guy or girl. They're probably going to they're going to debut them on their first show, probably maybe Monday or maybe the beginning of July. We'll have to wait and see. And then the second question is, where's Shannon Sharpe going to go? Right? A lot of us have been speculating about that. I certainly have. When the news came out that Shannon Sharpe was going to be leaving Undisputed, Stephen A. Smith put the word out there. He essentially said that he wouldn't mind having Shannon Sharpe on Undisputed, on ESPN First Take, to have him make guest appearances or periodic appearances, the same way you see Chris Mad Dog Russo or JJ Redick, Kendrick Perkins, Michael Irvin, who I'm not sure if he still goes there, but you pretty much he wants him to be a rotational guest. So Stephen A. Smith extended the olive branch. But then recently, I was listening to a segment from Marcellus Wiley's show. Marcellus Wiley, who I like, I'm sure a good amount of you like Marcellus Wiley, and he was talking about the Shannon Sharpe situation. Now, here's some background information that I think a lot of you guys need to know. First of all, when we're talking about Shannon Sharpe, if you go back to the information as it pertains to him leaving Undisputed, one of the wrinkles and the articles and publications about that story was Shannon Sharpe was leaving Fox Sports with his show Club Shay Shay. Now, Club Shay Shay, who I've seen many episodes, I'm sure you guys have seen many episodes. Club Shay Shay has 1.2 million subscribers on YouTube. Okay. Apart from that, the channel has generated 235 million views. And this is not including podcast downloads, which we don't know, which is a whole different game, podcasts pretty much add a lot of value to whatever you're doing. We're learning this now. We have a lot of big announcements that we have coming down the turnpike in terms of Dreamers Pro. A lot of things that we're excited about. We're just kind of getting through the paperwork here. So you stay tuned for that. We have a lot of information coming out pretty soon. And you guys are going to be seeing a lot of interesting things from this particular platform. So that's Shannon Sharpe. That's kind of what he's going with, right? And then I started to listen to what Marcellus Wiley had to say. And Marcellus Wiley introduced FanDuel as one of the players that could potentially get Shannon Sharpe. And to be quite frank with you, this wasn't even something that I was contemplating. So what we want to do is we want to play some clips from Marcellus Wiley's show, where he basically talks about the connection between Shannon Sharpe and FanDuel and how that could possibly be a thing. So take a listen to what Marcellus Wiley had to say here.
And Shannon Sharpe knows more than everybody because he knows what he's going to sign on to. Drops one of those coy tweets, one of those cryptic tweets that ain't so cryptic, right? And the tweet Monday said that he'll be back on morning TV soon. Well, that tweet drew nearly 14,000 likes and 1.3 million views. And he has a deal with FanDuel that will make strategic sense for both Sharpe and the giant sports betting operator. We'll talk about why that would make so much sense. All right. So right now there's a timing issue going on for guys that want to do major media or just want to land them a job, especially when their bread and butter is football. Now, his is football by people's perception of him. And even though he is a LeBron fan, a Laker fan, and he got all the funny Uncle Shay-isms, he's still known as a football guy. Now, that's his bread and butter. The difference between Shannon and I, other than millions and millions of views, now let me stop. The difference between Shannon and I is that at my core, I am not a football fan guy like that. I am a guy who loves life and uses football as an expression, right? So it was a means to an end for me. But knowing guys like Shannon, they were all in terms of the analysis, in terms of them coming back to it. I like to interject and intersect life and sports a lot more than just Shannon Sharpe and other guys. Fine, just different lanes, right? So for me, there wasn't a sense of urgency to run and do some more football because one, as Mike Tirico and I had this great argument / discussion, I just can't talk about third and goal, dog. And he loves it. And he's like, I swear by it. I love being in the stadium. And it's that moment. And I'm like, all right, that's it. That's why you Mike Tirico. So great. So Shannon Sharpe has that timing issues. Time to go figure this thing out real fast, right? And butter that bread, as they say. Also, he got Club Shay Shay in tow. So do you throw that part of the deal? Do you not? You keep that back. Whatever you do with that, that is a valuable asset. 1.2 million followers. So he's bringing that a part of the deal as well. Got early. He got in there early. He was the first one at FS1 to do that deal, right? So you got to reward him as well because he took that risk because everybody else was doing shows. And then they were like, why is Shannon doing another show? You know, as I told you guys before, that was not the norm. I signed a deal in 2018, not a single conversation about a podcast, even though at the crib, I was starting to develop one at home just because all my friends was like, dog, you hide too much of who you are. You're not really the sports guy fully. Like you're a life guy who's talking sports. So, Shannon got in there early, and then you see Nick, Wright, Skip, Bayless, etc. Joe Klatt, everybody over there now has one, but none as big as Shannon Sharpe's. So if he became one of the FanDuel TV spokespeople and one of their announcers, he would be one of the biggest, if not the biggest on there.
So you heard what Marcellus Wiley had to say, right? Now, let me first of all react to what he's saying. FanDuel and a lot of these sports books are major players because it seems like these guys have a limitless amount of money to spend, right? It seems like they're really trying to make a push to get their name out there. And I think that a lot of these sports books, they're going to start to put pressure on a lot of these major networks to basically increase the value of the guys that they're paying on their shows. I mean, basically that's what's happening. Think about it. If Shannon Sharpe was on Undisputed, and let's say he was earning $5 million a year, and a company like FanDuel is like, I can pay you $10 million a year, what does that do? Apart from the fact that it appreciates Shannon Sharpe's value in the market, but it also appreciates people that do similar things to Shannon Sharpe. It appreciates their value in the marketplace as well. And it's going to force these bigger companies to now come up with bigger checks to pay these guys, right? That's the first thing. Now, I do have a little bit of pushback on Marcellus Wiley's assertion. Not to say that I know more about this situation than Marcellus Wiley. I'm not saying that because Marcellus Wiley actually knows Shannon Sharpe. So if you guys didn't actually see that full segment, go check it out on his channel. But there was a tweet that was actually put out there a few days ago on Twitter. It was published on June 19th. And Shannon Sharpe tweeted, I'm enjoying my early morning workouts, late breakfast, and break from wearing a suit every morning, but just for a little while. I'll be back on television in the mornings soon. So there you have Shannon Sharpe saying that he could potentially make a return to television, right? So if Shannon is making a return to television, then how is the FanDuel thing going to work? Because FanDuel, I'm assuming he would need to be doing things on an independent basis, which brings me to the Pat McAfee contract. I want to touch on it a little bit from an article here that we got from, where is this? From Sports Illustrated. So let me just read a little bit of this. It says, lessons fallout from Pat McAfee's monster deal with FanDuel. The article continues on. Widely popular radio show / YouTube show host Pat McAfee announced Thursday that he has signed a new deal with FanDuel for an absurd amount of money. It's a 4-year deal with an opt-out after 3 years, and according to Shams Charania, FanDuel will be handing over roughly $30 million a year to McAfee, who never made even close to that much during his punting days with the Colts. Shams Charania. It's roughly $30 million per year deal. It's roughly $30 million per year, the industry sources say. Ian Rappaport, Thursday Pat McAfee show, FanDuel have agreed in terms to a new deal, ensuring that FanDuel continues to be exclusive sports book of the show. It's a 4-year, a massive deal that includes an opt-out after 3 years. So that's the type of money we're talking about. And I think that's the point that Marcellus Wiley was making, which essentially was, hey, listen, there's going to be a lot of free cash hanging around. And when you have a guy like Shannon Sharpe, who's one of the most popular sports analysts in the United States, when he becomes a free agent, companies like this that have tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars to throw at talent, they could possibly throw it in the direction of Shannon Sharpe. And you heard everything that he had to say about the tweet and everything. And you also heard about what he said in terms of putting out a post, how much they charge and all of that. So to me, it's very, very in-depth. It's very, very interesting. I think a lot of us have to wait and see how this thing kind of pans out. I'm going to be very interested to see maybe Shannon Sharpe has some type of modified situation where he has his own show, maybe he's sponsored by one of these big companies, and maybe he's making appearances on television. I don't know. I think we all have to wait and see how that turns out. So really the question to the audience is simply this. How do you think this thing ends up working out for Shannon Sharpe? Do you think he signs with a major company? Do you think he goes back to television full time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now let's move on to the next segment. This segment here, we're going to be focusing on Nick Wright. Now, as you guys know, I'm going to reiterate this for maybe the new people in the room. I've never been a big fan of Nick Wright. I think it's important that I say this. I have never been a fan of Nick Wright. I knew that I never needed to take Nick Wright seriously when I heard Nick Wright say on television back in 2016 that LeBron James became the greatest player of all time in 2016 after he came back from that 3-1 deficit and officially eclipsed Michael Jordan. I already knew I was in trouble with Nick when I heard Nick Wright was the first person that I ever heard on television say that Kobe Bryant was never the best player in the world. Prior to Nick Wright saying that, I had literally never heard anyone say that. And what Nick did was he built this following. He basically built the following by essentially grifting, right? Saying things that some LeBron fans wanted to hear. And then somehow he landed a job on television on one of these prominent shows. And he was able to pretty much go out there and push an agenda. Now, some of you guys may be saying, but what are you talking about pushing an agenda? How do you know Nick Wright is pushing an agenda? Well, I think, listen, the vast majority of us out here have always thought that Nick Wright has some type of affiliation with LeBron James's camp. For some of you guys, well, LeBron James, how can Nick Wright be affiliated with LeBron James? Well, LeBron James' best friend, or one of his best friends, is Rich Paul. Rich Paul, who owns the sports agency Clutch Sports, right? So that's the connection. Now, some of you wonder, but what about Nick Wright? How's Nick? A lot of us have always speculated that Nick Wright was somehow connected to LeBron's camp, right? Because whenever you listen to some of his takes, you were just like, but these are outlandish, absurd takes. So what happened? Earlier this week, about a day or so ago, I was listening to a segment from Doug Gottlieb. Doug Gottlieb, a lot of people got on my case. You don't know how to pronounce Doug Gottlieb's name. Was I there when they were naming Doug Gottlieb? No. So sometimes I get it right, sometimes I get it wrong. Gottlieb, if I mispronounce your name, I'm sorry. Right? The Gottlieb. I hope I got his name right. But anyway, that's a wrinkle. That's not the point of this show here. The pronunciation of Doug Gottlieb's name. Anyway, I was listening to a segment from him, and in this segment, he was essentially pushing back on Nick Wright. And to be fair to Doug, he's the only person I've seen at FS1 to actually push back on some of his own contemporaries. He did the same thing with Skip Bayless, basically by calling Skip Bayless obnoxious. And now he did it with Nick Wright. So as he was talking about Nick Wright's outlandish Michael Jordan take, in the process of that, he then revealed, haphazardly or in passing, that Nick Wright is represented by Clutch Sports. So for those of you who actually never heard that audio, what we want to do is we want to play it for you now, and then we're going to come back and continue with the show. Take a listen to that.
Here's how I operate. I will, and we have, What Does the Fox Say? That's on our In the Bonus podcast, which you can download. It goes live right at 5 on the East Coast, 2 on the West Coast. And we play for you a portion of a previous show on Fox Sports Radio or Fox Sports 1, and then we talk about it. But I couldn't let this one go. Nick Wright is Team LeBron, right? Like if LeBron actually needed a media cheerleader, he would have a skirt and pom-poms. And he's made no secret about it. He believes he's the greatest athlete he has ever seen. And Nick's 38 years old, so he wasn't really old enough to truly feel and understand the gravity of the Jordan era. It's all from spoken word and videos and reading. He's a really bright guy, and he's on First Things First, which I think airs right about now on Fox Sports 1. Matter of fact, he's actually repped by Clutch Sports. So he's almost like he can do damage control. And it's not like I think LeBron picks up the phone and says, hey, got my back. But any possible chance of pointing out something negative about Jordan or positive about LeBron, he takes advantage. So I don't know if you guys have seen, there's this internet story that Jordan is selling the team because he shorted the GameStop stock to the tune of $500 million. And this is his way of paying back the guy who's actually going to own the Hornets, and they're overpaying really for the team, kind of as a make good. But Michael Jordan he's still making the draft, but he still has last word in the draft selection. And for now, he's still the owner of the Hornets, but eventually that'll go through and he will pocket $2 billion. This is what Nick Wright said about what he calls the failed ownership of the Charlotte Hornets and how it should reflect on Michael Jordan's resume.
So Michael Jordan sold the Hornets, made a fortune. Michael's been very good at business, from his shoe deals. You know, I know you're I can see.
Oh, yeah. Listen, Colin, a lot of, it was very unique that, someone bought a pro sports team 20 years ago and made a profit. I mean, I read stories left and right. Yeah, I mean, a guy sold the Arizona Cardinals. He's now on unemployment. Another guy, I mean, it's financially ruinous for many people, but a brilliant businessman like Jordan can make a profit from selling a pro sports team. But go ahead. I interrupted. I'm sorry.
It's a very good point. How, I mean, Michael, baseball didn't work. The Wizards didn't work. The GM thing didn't work. He's great at basketball, great at selling shoes, and those are qualities. I mean, there's a lot about Michael I like. How do you view him now as the Charlotte GM owner mess? Does it ding the legacy to you?
Okay, so I would like to do a couple things. One is this. Everyone must acknowledge, if they are being honest, that when Jordan took over the Hornets 15 years ago, he turned them into a dynasty, people would use it as evidence of his greatness. Can we all at least agree to that?
Yes.
That if they were awesome, they'd be like, oh, look at him, Jay. Everything he touches turns to gold. Instead, his ownership tenure of the Hornets was identical to his playing tenure when Scottie Pippen wasn't his teammate. 0 postseason series victories. He won 3 games, at least, as a Hornets GM and owner in the playoffs, as opposed to only 1 as a player. But here's my problem. If we would like to judge the greatest player ever purely by, we will evaluate from the day you first set foot on a court to the day you leave the NBA, I'm good with that. But that's never been what it's been for Michael. Michael's had, in some way, because of all the acolytes and sycophants, the best of all worlds. Cool.
So you get the point, okay? You get the point. He wants to use the whole picture to talk about Jordan and who, in fact, is the greatest. I'm going to do something now which should have been done a long time ago. I'm going to tell people that anyone who uses the Scottie Pippen joining him and that Jordan didn't win anything with Scottie Pippen is the dumbest, least connected to reality moment that there is. And I'm going to say it without diminishing how great Scottie became. Because if you were actually alive, which Nick Wright was not, nor was he of age to understand basketball. And full disclosure, I'm 9 years older than Nick Wright. And I'm not even going to point out I'm not doing the I played and my dad played and coached and my brother, like not even, don't even need all of that. The reality of it is that the transformation of Scottie Pippen's image and how he played is very similar to Pau Gasol with the Lakers.
So you heard what he had to say. You heard what he had to say. Nick Wright, in fact, is literally represented by Clutch Sports. This is the guy that goes out there every single day that tries to find silly, outlandish ways to trash Michael Jordan. He trashed Kobe Bryant for years, all in an effort to prop up LeBron James. That was Nick Wright's primary objective. A lot of us out here were looking at this guy like, why is he going so hard at Kobe? What did Kobe ever do to Nick Wright? What did Kobe ever do to Nick Wright for him to be talking about Kobe Bryant this way? Nevertheless, that's what he did. He would constantly go at Kobe. The latest one was some of the most, think about this. Imagine you invest your money and over a period of years, you 10x your money. Then somebody comes and says to you, I hope you know that you're a failure. But you would look at the guy like, man, this is patently absurd. How am I a failure? I just 10x my money. He said, well, you didn't do well in this endeavor. You were supposed to be the next greatest, business owner. You didn't do well. He's like, yeah, but I was a very successful magician in my former career. He's like, well, because you were terrible at this particular business, that means that it must work against your legacy as a great musician. And then somebody in the back stood up and said, what kind of stupidity is this? Essentially, that's what Nick Wright was doing. Nick Wright was saying that because Michael Jordan wasn't able to win any championships, or I don't know what he considers success with the Charlotte Hornets, therefore it should be some type of stain on his legacy as a basketball player. This is the caliber of person we're dealing with on television every day. His takes were so outlandish, and it left a lot of us scratching our heads. And the moment that I found out that he's now represented by Clutch Sports, it all makes sense. Some people say, but what's the issue? The issue is called conflict of interest. That's the issue. How can we take anything serious out of your mouth as it pertains to LeBron when you're represented by the talent agency that is directly connected to him? Why would we take you seriously? You're basically a lapdog. You go out there, you push agendas, you do it with a straight face, you have a suit, you have a big beard, you use large words. So therefore what? What you're doing is what? Ethical? So the question then becomes, Nick, do you really believe what you're saying? Do you really believe what you're saying? Now, somebody say, but what would make you say that? Well, I'll tell you what makes you say, what would make one say that. A few years prior, we unearthed a tweet of Nick Wright taking shots at who? LeBron James himself. And now this is the guy you're championing every single day, bro. So to me, listen, I never took Nick Wright seriously. This was just added evidence that I never need to take Nick Wright seriously. I never need to take any of his points seriously. I think that a lot of his basketball takes are just flat out wacky, outlandish. And the moment, think about it. I believe it was in 2012 as a matter of fact, I don't even need to sit up here and guess. What we're going to do is We're going to play a clip from one of our old shows that we produced a number of months ago, where we basically read the tweets that Nick Wright had to put out there a number of years ago in terms of LeBron James and his ranking all time. Just take a quick listen to that. So let me read what Nick Wright had to say on Twitter back in 2011. He said, on May 27, 2011, in regards to the LBJ versus MJ debate, there is no debate. MJ, greatest player ever. LBJ, not yet in top 10. Could change in a decade, though. Those were Nick Wright's words. Those were his words. So how did all of a sudden in 2016, how did he go from not being in the top 10 or barely being in the top 10? How did he go all the way to number 1? And how did Michael Jordan, if you knew in 2011, was the GOAT, how did Jordan drop from number 1 to number 3? None of this, folks, makes any sense whatsoever. So you heard Nick Wright's position. So let me get this straight. At that point, LeBron had no rings. He then goes on to win 3 rings. And then he becomes the greatest player of all time. And then Michael Jordan drops. Why would Jordan drop down three pegs? Why would he do that? Why would he do that? This is the type of people we're dealing with. This is the Nick Wrights of the world. I will never take him seriously. I'm sure we pissed off a lot of people. And I could give a you-know-what. I could give a you-know-what. You know why? Because I have a right to give my opinion. If Nick Wright has the right to go out there and say the crazy stuff that he says in terms of basketball, because I don't watch him for anything else, then I think there should be a provision that allows there to be a counterbalance to the nonsense. Hence, our take on Nick Wright and the takes of so many others that have been calling out this madness. So those are my thoughts. So what I want to know from you guys is, what are your thoughts now after realizing that Nick Wright is being represented by Clutch Sports? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comments. So let's continue on here to the next segment here. And in this segment, I want to talk a little bit about Zion Williamson. Let's talk about Zion. Zion. Boy, oh boy, what do we even say about Zion? Zion was supposed to be one of the new phenoms to come into the NBA. I know it seems like a lifetime ago, but a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, Zion Williamson was the most hyped NBA player probably since LeBron James. And why? You had a 6'6" guy that weighed about, 260, 270, that could literally jump out of the gym. It was absolutely something we have never seen. We've seen players, stocky guys like Charles Barkley, but not with this level of explosive. Zion was so explosive that he was literally bursting out of his shoes when he would try to make a move on a court. He played with that amount of torque and ferocity, right? So when Zion came into the NBA, there were so many high expectations, but one of the things that a lot of people were wary of was Zion Williamson's weight. A lot of people were concerned about his weight. They were like, this is way too much weight to be carrying on that frame, given the type of sports you play. A sport that involves you jumping up and down, and taking all of that weight, dropping it back on the floor. That's going to put a tremendous amount of stress on your knees. A lot of people said this, Shannon Sharpe. So many people said this. And once Zion got into the NBA, we found out that he was having issues staying healthy, right? That was the number one thing. And a lot of that, frankly, was being attributed to his weight. Now, in terms of his basketball game, Zion Williamson was arguably the most impressive young star in the entire NBA. Let me give you his numbers in year 2. In year 2 and 61 games for the New Orleans Pelicans, he was averaging 27 points. I mean, think about this, 27 points per game in his second year on 61.1% shooting. I mean, that's madness. Shooting 29% from the 3, 70% from the free throw line, with 7 rebounds a game, 3.7 assists, only 2.7 turnovers, while getting you 0.9 in steals and 0.6 in blocks. Zion was on beast mode. But unfortunately, that year he only played 61 games in his second year, and in his third year, which was just his prior season. Unfortunately, Zion Williamson missed he played 29 games, so he missed 50 about 53 games or something like that. Yeah, 53 games or something like that. So he missed a lot of games. And then what happened? We heard that he was rehabilitating, and then there was some rumors out there that he wasn't getting along with the general manager of the New Orleans Pelicans. And when we're hearing that Zion wanted to play in a bigger market like New York City, all of these different things. And then throughout the rehab process towards the end, we then found out that he had finally completed it. So we then listened to a soundbite from him where he said that physically he's good, but mentally he's not in the right space. And a lot of us were like, bro, what? Like, and what? You getting paid all this money, you're not in the right space? You better get yourself in the right. What you mean you're not? So you're in the right space to collect them checks, but you're not in the right space to go out there and play? So a lot of us kind of give him a side eye. And then what happened? Week or two ago, all hell broke loose on the internet because Zion took it upon himself to share a beautiful moment between himself and a young lady that he was expecting a child from. The people that cared clapped. I didn't know, so I just observed it. And then shortly after that, a lady by the name of Mariah Mills, she jumps on Twitter and she goes on a tirade. Apparently, this was one of Zion's love interests. And then another one came out. And then another one came out. But this particular lady, she kept going. She kept roasting. She kept toasting. And then at a particular point, some of us out here, and I got to give the credit to Too Raw for TV, he brought up the point. He was like, wait a minute. What if the roles were reversed here? What if this was a male adult star saying this about a female athlete? Would everyone be so quiet about it? And then I started to think, but wait a minute, this is bullying. Why isn't anybody saying anything about this? And then the accusations just started to become even more disgusting and more disgusting. She was basically putting all their business out there in the street. And she was acting like as if they were married. This is the part I didn't, were y'all married? What's all of this anger for? Were y'all married? Were y'all engaged? So what are you so upset about? What are you so upset? No, wait. Are you a saint? Are you a construction worker? We see your work that you put out there, that I'm commenting on, that you put out there. So what's all of this self-righteousness about? And then she starts posting all this information, sensitive information, talking about money and blah, 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 blah. Then it kept getting worse and it kept getting worse. Even Jay Williams was like, if I'm him, I'm getting a restraining order. I said on one of those shows, I'm like, Zion just needs to cease communication. Just let the person talk. Just don't send any messages. Don't say anything. Then I noticed she started involving the team. And I'm like, what does the team have to do with you and Zion? Why are you involved in his workplace? I'm like, what are you trying to do? Get this guy thrown out of the NBA? And then she made another outlandish threat. And then finally Twitter said, you know what? Enough is enough. We're suspending your account. And now it's over. Now it's over. Her account has been suspended. And we're no longer going to hear from her, which puts the focus back on Zion. Zion needs to really get his mind right, because it seems like Zion has kind of lost his way in this new NBA world. And this was something that Kendrick Perkins on ESPN actually alluded to, that Zion needs to get his head tied on properly, that he seems to have lost his way, right? As a person that's not playing basketball, and people have all of these questions about your way, you need to be more focused on your craft, bro. You can't have these type of stories coming out about you. Now, do these things happen? Absolutely. It happens every single day. But why are you the only one that they're talking about like this? It's a bad look. At least some of those guys that they're discussing, at least they're out there playing. In your case, you're not. So to me, I think it's a very, very bad look. And now it's gone to the point where the New Orleans Pelicans are now talking about possibly trading Zion. I mean, think about it. They're now talking about possibly moving on from Zion. The Zion Williamson, that when he came into the NBA, he was the best thing since sliced bread. Now, even the New Orleans Pelicans are like, you know what? We're tired of this guy. Now, some people have kind of gone back and forth on whether or not they should keep him or not, because at this point it's a gamble. But whenever teams begin to look at your seriousness as a professional, staying in shape is literally your job. And if you guys don't remember, they actually put in a lot of provisions in his contract that was directly tied to his weight issues. So this is a very, very serious matter. So to find yourself embroiled in this type of madness online doesn't look well on your character. It doesn't bode well for you. So to me, man, I think Zion really needs to find a way to self-correct, get the ship right. I mean, steer the ship back in the correct direction, and really, really focus on his career and ensure that whenever we talk about him, we're talking about his basketball game and not because of these crazy, crazy stories that are circulating all throughout the internet. So these are my thoughts. So what I want to know from you guys is, what do you think about the Zion situation? Do you think the Zion is going to be able to get his head on right, get his weight under control, and really, take the next step in his career? Do you think that, listen, these things it's not a good sign for Zion? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comments. Okay, so let's talk about this bonus topic that we have here today. We're going to be talking about them Clippers who most likely going to piss me off. Let's talk about these damn Clippers. As you guys know, I'm a Clipper supporter. On top of that, I'm a Kawhi Leonard supporter who made me a Clipper supporter. Now, initially, when Kawhi Leonard signed with the Clippers, I got to say, I was twerking it up all over the place, knocking over drinks, busting lights, all type of stuff for Kawhi Leonard. Now, that's a term that we use on this channel. For those of you who never heard of twerking it up, I was the one using it. So anyway, I was really hyped. I'm like, yo, Kawhi Leonard gonna win this, blah, 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 blah. So what happens? Clippers get Kawhi, they get Paul George. They go to the playoffs, they wet the bed. The second round, lose to this Denver Nuggets team. Well, not this particular Denver Nuggets team, but they lost to these guys, right? Blew a 3-1 lead. And ever since then, it's just been a downward spiral. They lost, and in the second year, they get to the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard gets injured in game 4 in LA against the Utah Jazz. Then he's gone for a year. They lose in the conference finals. And then the next year, he doesn't play. Paul George gets injured. They get knocked out in the eighth, in the play-in tournament. And then last year, after the Clippers load managed all season long, all of that foolishness, I was like, yes, this is going to be the moment. So what happens? Clippers end up as the 5th seed against a 3-seed Suns. I believe the Suns were the 3 seed, if I'm not mistaken, because I know the Nuggets were 1, the Grizzlies were 2. Clippers going to game 1. Kawhi Leonard and these boys pull out the upset with Russell Westbrook. Had all of these haters shook, and I was on the channel talking my big dog talk. I was talking so much trash. I was so hyped. I was like, you just witnessed the best MFer in the world. I was so hyped. A few hours later, we get a notification that Kawhi Leonard will be missing game 2. Complete silence. We now find out Kawhi's not playing. And when I heard that news, I was like, this cannot be real. And in typical Clippers fashion, they decide to keep everybody in the dark. I can only imagine what the people who are betting money were feeling at that point. They don't say anything, right? Ultimately, Kawhi Leonard never returns to that series, and the Clippers lose in round 1. Russell Westbrook was able to salvage his name somewhat, right? Immediately after that happens, because Paul George wasn't there, questions started to come up, which were, should the Clippers consider blowing this thing up? And at the time, I said, I think the Clippers should consider blowing it up. I think they should consider. Some people said no. So today, while doing some research, I came across an article around the draft. It says Knicks Clippers, it's from Sports Illustrated. It says Knicks Clippers in contact about potential Paul George deal. Per report, the article continues on. The Knicks and Clippers have reportedly engaged on a potential trade centered around star wing Paul George, according to the Knicks reporter Ian Begley of SNY. Begley noted that it is unknown whether the Clippers are willing to move on from George. NBA reporter Mark Stein noted Tuesday that the Clippers gave rival teams the impression that they were gauging George's trade value in the open market. The Clippers have struggled with keeping their 2 stars, Kawhi Leonard and George healthy throughout their time in Los Angeles. On paper, the Los Angeles Lakers have consistently looked like a team ready to compete in the Western Conference, but their stars haven't stayed healthy over the last couple of seasons, leading to the Clippers reportedly gauging George's value for a potential off-season moves. After the Knicks, a run at the Eastern Conference semis this past season proved that this team is ready to take the next step behind the star point guard Jalen Brunson. Brunson has ascended as a true number one option after signing with the Knicks in the free agency last summer, and the healthy version of Paul George would give New York an all-NBA option on the wing with flanking Brunson. Then basically the article goes on. So should the Clippers trade Kawhi Leonard and Paul George? If I'm thinking with my heart, I'll say no. But if I'm thinking with my head, I'll say yes. The fact of the matter is, I just don't think these guys will ever be healthy. I mean, for the past, 1, 2, 3 years, they've not been healthy. Number one. Number two, do you know the amount of money is costing Steve Ballmer and these guys to have these guys on the roster, and they're not producing the results? Do you know the financial implications of keeping these two guys on payroll? That's the second thing. And for them not to be, it's not like as if they were delivering and making finals runs. They're not, right? And they're always going out for the most disappointing reasons. You've even heard rumblings that Ty Lue is unhappy being there. That's another thing. Another thing is that this will be the last year of their contracts. So chances are, if you don't try to get any value for them, these guys can just turn around and walk. So at that point, you're risking your future on a gamble for these guys. So there's so many gambles when we're talking about the Clippers. So if I'm them, I'm considering blowing up this thing. Some people will say, oh, no. I think a lot of people think with their emotions because you don't know what's going to happen. But what we do know is what has happened. And we know that players are not going to be getting healthier as they get older. So to me, man, I will blow it up and try to figure something else out. I just don't see it. As much as it pains me to say that, y'all know how hard I was supporting, but come on, man. Like the Clippers, they do things that nobody can understand with their load management. And at the end of the season, Lawrence Frank, president of basketball operations, and or is it president or GM or whatever, he goes, oh, we need to put an emphasis on the regular season. Well, what were you guys doing this? You guys were the ones that implemented this silly load management to the upteenth power. And look where it got you. So to me, man, I'm done. I will blow it up and move on and head on over to doing something else. This is just my thought. So what I want to know from you guys is, do you think the Clippers should keep these guys together or break them up? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comment section. And also let us know what you thought about today's show, the Friday special. Let us know, do you want to do more shows like this or not? Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comments. We catch you next time. Peace.